Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Teamwork a Better Way. I'm Christian Napier, and I am joined by the autumnly festive Spencer Horn. Spencer, how you doing?
Great, and just keeping on with the theme from last week. We've got the leaves up in the mountains are still beautiful and turning and falling. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, although my voice is out of sync with my
Ah,
face. About 3 seconds behind. I don't know what's going on with my video, but viewers, please exercise patience. I'm not sure what kind of technical difficulty I'm having over here. I've tried two different network connections, and I'm still
Christian,
having.
I think both you and I have an issue. It's our faces that are the problem, but our voices are actually pretty good. So just listen to his silvery voice, and everything will be fine.
Yes, as they used to say back in the day, a face made for radio. That's what I have
Yeah,
here.
that's right.
Uh,
So I heard you did a road trip this weekend. Yeah, to beautiful Pocatello.
yeah, so actually, we did a couple of different road trips. Of course, as you know, it was extremely rainy this weekend, so
Yes, it was.
um, that kind of put a damper on things. But my wife and I have a tradition to go in our church. We have a conference twice a year, and we have a tradition on one of those conference days to drive up to Pocatello and have some tacos and then drive back. It's about a 2.5 hour drive up to Pocatello and then 2.5 hours back. So it's $60 in gas for $20 in tacos, and it's a lot of fun.
Well, we have one tradition that we do on Sunday morning of conference, and that is I make Eierflinsen, which are the German version of crepes. And we have all kinds of like cream cheese and whipped cream filling, raspberry compote, Nutella, bananas, and then of course topped with whipped cream. Anything you want to put on it. And we had grandkids and kids over and watched conference, so that was a treat.
That sounds delicious. I'm going to invite myself over to your conference celebration one
Every
of these
six
days.
months, 9 o'clock on Sunday morning, right before conference. You're absolutely welcome.
That's perfect. Well, enough about the conference banter. We need to talk about the topic for today, trust. And you've got probably one of the best guests that we could imagine to talk about this topic today.
Hundred
So why
percent.
don't you go ahead and
I
introduce her?
I can't wait. I'm so excited. We have Darcy Luoma, my friend. I'm going to put her on the screen while we talk about her because you and I have been on there too long by ourselves. There she is. She is. I love Darcy. So she and I met, Christian, about 4 years ago at a National Speakers Association conference in Las Vegas, and I accidentally sat down at her table. It was one of the kind of pre-conference events. Do you remember that?
I do.
And I just started to get to know her, and everybody in the room knew her, and I'm like, all right, I get to know this person. I found out that she likes to, I mean, she's like a triathlete. She's just a health crazy person. I mean, she's always doing fun things, and so I said, hey, there's a great hike. Let's go. And we went on one of my favorites called Craft Mountain Loop in Las Vegas. She trusted me. Did it work out okay, Darcy?
It worked out great. And there was a high degree of trust because that was no joke of a hike. And you were phenomenal as a tour guide. I loved it.
We had so much fun, and I think we had to leave at like 5 in the morning or something like that.
We did.
And then just at this most recent conference in Phoenix, we were in where were we? It's not Phoenix,
Scottsdale.
Scottsdale. Yeah, we there's like four of us, Marcy and I forget some of your other friends. We went and uh, Piestewa Peak, is that what it's called?
Yes.
But now I can't keep up with Darcy. She's such an athlete. So I went by myself, and they went like on 4 miles. I did like a 1 mile thing, and then
Straight
I
up.
got yeah, but
You're not.
I got back like 5 minutes before them, and they did 4 miles. So, but here's Darcy. Let me tell you a little bit more about her. So she's the author of Thoughtfully Fit, which I have a copy of, signed copy. And she's a certified speaking professional, yes, is a master certified coach and inspiring speaker. And I've heard her speak, and that is true. She has worked as director for a U.S. senator, trusted senior advisor to a governor, and on the national advance team for the White House and two presidential campaigns, Christian. As the CEO of Darcy Luoma Coaching and Consulting, she's worked in 48 industries with more than 500 organizations to create high-performing people and teams, which is absolutely the focus of our podcast, Darcy. So perfect fit. And she balances running, which we talked a little bit about, with her thriving business and raising two energetic teenage daughters. What an awesome job that is for you. And she loves adventure. She and I actually got to hang out a little bit in Bali together with my wife Jana, and having a wonderful event there. She loves travel and competing in triathlons for the last 25 years. Now, that's a very, very simple bio. What she doesn't talk about is, and I can't remember exactly because I'm reading about it in her book. She's got like this Master's of Organizational Development from Pepperdine. Is that right?
That's right.
So she's pretty smart, and there's more that she's very humble. I mean, her less than a paragraph bio is, I think, very indicative of her natural kind of reserved speaking about herself. What I know, she does not like to talk about herself, so I needed to slobber on you, Darcy, because I think you're absolutely amazing.
I think you're amazing, Spencer, and it's such an honor to be here with you and Christian.
Thank you. Well, let's get started. So you say that you have been coaching before coaching was even a thing, right? I mean, you're not even that old. How's that even possible? But so just talk about how you got into this coaching, how you got into this life and into being able to do all this coaching for like senators. So Christian, you'll love this. She has coached high performing sports performers like collegiate and NFL. So she's coached all kinds of high performers and in all kinds of industries and sports. Christian is a huge sports fanatic, which we'll talk about in a second. So how'd you start there?
Yeah, it's funny because, I spent a couple decades in politics, as I mentioned, and I would be sitting, I ran Senator Herb Kohl's office here in Wisconsin, and this is a story that's indicative. I'd be sitting in a meeting, there'd be lobbyists and constituents that would come in, they'd have a whole group, and they would be, talking about what the number one most important thing is for them. And whatever it was, whether it was fallen DAFA or Social Security reform and the Iraq War. And at some point in that hour-long meeting, after like 40 minutes, they would be like, "So, Darcy, what does Senator Kohl think about this?" And I would be caught off guard because the whole time I'm paying attention to the dynamics in the room. And, I wonder if we had done introductions, if the other voices that are quiet would feel more comfortable speaking. And I wonder, there's a second row that isn't sitting at the table. If they came and sat at the table, if they would, and I'm looking at how the interplay is of the team dynamics in that room. And so then I'd be like, Senator, let me look into that and get back to you, because I've always loved looking at how people communicate, how they handle themselves, how they disagree, whether there's alignment. And so that after, 20 years in the political field, I realized that this is truly my passion. So I went and got my master's, as you said, at Pepperdine in organization development. And I did my master's thesis on the impact of coaching on overall life satisfaction. And I did a 2-year deep dive. It took 100 former US Senate interns, and that worked for me. Randomly selected 10, coached them weekly for 3 months. And we did pre-tests and post-tests. And I hired a UW-Madison professor to do all the stats, and he came back and said, "Oh my gosh, Darcy, you should publish. You can unequivocally say that regardless of where someone starts at the beginning of their coaching journey, age, gender, what their level of self-awareness is, their goals, that after 3 months of coaching, they have a higher degree of satisfaction and they have a better goal attainment." So that started my then journey to getting certified and going down that coaching path.
I think that is terrific because, part of your temperament really actually showed up in that story that you're observing, and I love your response when you're caught off guard to kind of speak up instead of just blurting out an answer, which I would do. you're like, let me get back to you, right? And I think that's so appropriate. One thing,
Well, and interesting because our topic is trust. I'll tell you that's the one thing I learned.
we're
Senator
getting
Cole always said, "You don't give an answer. If you aren't 100% certain, you find out, and it'll build
that's
trust. If
right.
you say I'm not sure."
And I love that. And some people are actually feel like when they're put on the spot that to say they're unsure, shooting themselves in the foot. It's not. It's not. It's actually sometimes the absolute right thing to do. But this whole coaching research that you did, I think it's really interesting because there's a lot of coaches out there that they have this step, 5-step, 3-step, 10-step, this program. To me, that's not really coaching, is it? I mean, when I look at I love this. She's thoughtfully fit, Christian, and that's what it and she reminds me a lot of you because you're so thoughtful as well. But I think part of your success as a coach is you recognize that the high performers that you work with have their own expertise. You don't need their expertise. You just need to help them figure out how to get to their goals, which sometimes they don't know, right? They're focused on their goals. They don't know how to get there. And you help remove those goals, not by telling them what to do, but by helping them see things differently. And I think that's what a great coach can do. And so sometimes you got to just shut up and listen, right?
Yeah, coaching is very different. When I went for my MCC, my Master Certified Coach designation, if there's any indication in sending in those recordings and of I had to send in recordings of me coaching people live, of teaching, telling, fixing, advising, it's an automatic fail. And 94% of people fail at that master level because that's not coaching. And so to be able to just mirror back and reflect back and say, here's what I'm hearing. Here's what I'm hearing is important to you. What's important about that? Okay. And what does it look like if you were successful? And what are the obstacles to success? And if you got past those obstacles, how would you do that? Where would you start? And there's just a lot of, it's different than sports coaching in that regard, in that the client is truly the expert. And I'm there as the coach to help them create some new awareness and then identify some actions and have some built-in accountability to take those actions.
Okay, I want to come back to this idea of you not being the expert, there being the expert. So oftentimes in business, we feel like we have to be the expert to have credibility, and credibility is integral to trust, right? So if you come in and you say, well, I'm not the expert in this particular industry, or I'm not or this particular area of technical expertise, that's not really my domain. How do you then establish credibility and trust with people as you're helping them? When, sometimes people might say, well, what does she know? Like she has no idea about the stuff that I do. I live and breathe and do this every single day. And so sometimes you can start on what could be perceived as a position of weakness because you don't have expertise in a particular domain. So how do you overcome that to make sure that you establish credibility, which then leads to trust?
Such a critical question, Christian, because we also do in our firm, we do consulting and we do training and workshops, and there we are the experts. We're the experts in team development and leadership and how to communicate effectively and how to have alignment and how to build trust. So when we pull out and look just at coaching as the modem for working with a client, I work in fields and industries, manufacturing and healthcare, where I have no idea. The benefit of that is I don't come in saying, oh, I dump that. I know what your problem is. Here's how you can fix it. Because I have no idea, even if I was in that industry, how to fix it. And so the beauty of coaching is when you truly hold the person or the team as the expert, they know how to fix it. They know how to move past it. And so there's times when I can ask the really naive, dumb question that just blows apart the new awareness, because I'm not coming in with any hidden agenda or any like, oh, I think you need to do this or you should do that. it's what makes, I think, coaching so incredibly powerful. But I do want to just distinguish that when we are coming in and, with our training or consulting hat on, then of course we have a framework. Of course we have expertise. But coaching is, I think that's what makes it powerful, because when you come to me, let's just say, Christian, with an issue that you're struggling with or a dream that you have, I don't know what is driving that, what's important about it, what your values are, what success looks like, what's getting in the way. I can make up what it would be for me. But as soon as I do that, I'm limiting the breadth and depth and power of your getting to where you want to go, because I'm putting it through the lens of my experience and filtering it through my own values and struggles, which of course is going to be very different than yours. Does that make it?
Yeah, I told you I'd do that.
I love that.
Hey, we got a comment, and Amy, I don't know if you know Amy Mangan Fisher. She's just cheering you on.
Yay! Oh, thank you, Amy. That's awesome.
So, you brought up a subject, Christian, that psychologist Amy Cuddy talks about, right? She talks about which is more important. She frames it this way: what's more important, trust or credibility? I'm sure I'm getting it wrong. And then she'll ask it a different way, or warmth versus competence, right? Because when you say warmth versus competence, people say, well, competence, of course, you gotta put competence first, especially since you got a degree from Pepperdine, and Christian, we've got all these, we've put so much money into being right. So often we think we need to be right, but she says evolutionarily speaking, trust always comes first, right? I mean, go back to, let's just say, I think I have some Neanderthal in my DNA things. And so back in the Neanderthal days, Christian, I mean, if I came into your camp and asked, let me show you how good of a fire builder I am, would you really care if you were afraid that I was going to, kill you and steal your wife and sell her into slavery? I mean, that's the whole thing is, first of all, we have to have trust before we can demonstrate our competence. But let's get into this idea of trust. What do you think, Darcy, that most leaders get wrong about trust in the workplace? That's kind of the theme of our topic today.
Yeah. So I think, I don't know if most leaders get it wrong, but so I'm just talking and processing as I'm answering this question. I think a lot get it wrong. Is that trust is, I want you to think about it like oxygen in a workout. So you talked about thoughtfully fit, the model. That model that we use is a metaphor for being physically fit. And if you want to be physically fit, we know that you need to train, you need to practice. And when you do, you're going to get better results and be less likely to get injured. Same thing is true when you're thoughtfully fit, when you're handling your obstacles thoughtfully, when you are a thoughtful leader, when you are reflective. And so I want you to think about, and I think the place where leaders sometimes, will miss the mark is that trust is like oxygen in a workout. You don't notice it when it's there, but without it, everything falls apart fast. So when trust is strong, people are going to give their best effort. They're going to communicate openly. They're going to stick around. And when you don't have the trust, they end up, you're going to manage fear and gossip. You're going to be constantly second guessing, or they'll be second guessing you. And so when you don't have trust, there's oftentimes this negative sentiment override that people don't give the benefit of the doubt. They're guarded. They're post-meeting meetings. There's triangulation, all these things. So I think that the critical, it is so critical. It's like oxygen, that it's the foundation, and you need that. And so I don't know if leaders are missing it as much as they're just not recognizing how critical that is to ROI, to meeting your goals, to everything else you want to be doing with your team.
I'm writing down my next question, Christian. I'm throwing it to you, brother.
My internet's being a little wonky. No, my internet's being a little bit wonky. one of the questions that I have is just how pervasive is the problem of trust in the workplace? Spencer likes to talk about teams, and only 8 to 12% of teams are high performing teams, and also there are several statistics out there about how people have negative perceptions of their bosses and so on and so forth. So it sounds to me like there's a significant trust issue in the workplace. So I'm curious, in the work that you've done, in research that you've done, or in coaching that you've done, how pervasive is this issue? And in your view, what are the root causes?
It is quite pervasive, although the level of awareness of the trust or lack of trust on that spectrum that's there is not always high. So, for instance, I've been working with a team, doing some team coaching, an executive leadership team who was struggling. They were not they were not necessarily dysfunctional. They were not necessarily toxic. So we come in when we're doing team coaching at sort of a couple of key places. When it's a brand new team and they want to supercharge their success and say, let's do team coaching so that we can design our alliance. We can get really clear, make sure that we are aligned, that we communicate strong, that we understand each other's preferences. Then there's times that we come in. The second is when a team is fine. It's the other 4-letter F word. It's fine, but they don't want to be fine. They don't want to win the regionals. They want to win state. They want to win the Super Bowl, and they want to supercharge their success. The third time is when it's dysfunctional. So maybe at the first signs of it being sort of just fine, they don't pay attention and it erodes to becoming dysfunctional. And then if you don't really intentionally address the negative communication, the lack of trust, the misalignment at those stages, and the team goes on, then it becomes toxic. And there's toxins. There's 4 toxins that show up when a team is full blown toxic. And so the teams that we work with, the benefit of team coaching is there's some hitting the pause button to reference and reflect on where are we on that spectrum and what is the level of trust we have or we don't have. And surprisingly, there's a lot of times where they are shocked that the views of how much trust on the team is there by different team members is different. That one team member is like, I think we're great. I totally trust this team. And another is like, I don't know. I'm a little bit more guarded. I'm not sure that I fully trust everybody on this team. And so that's one of the things that we do is raise awareness on where is the trust. And then in particular, if we look at it going from a team lens to the individual lens, so I coach a lot of individuals. There's unawareness. I just had a coaching session last week with a CEO, and she actually said, I need, Darcy, what I need to do is figure out how to show up. I cannot be vulnerable. I can't show emotion because they're going to think that I'm weak. And we explored that and went deeper. And in the 360 that we did, what we found is that the team doesn't always trust her because she's so guarded and she doesn't ever let them see what she's really thinking. So we explored that and said, I get it, that's important to show strength and credibility. And yet, what's the impact on the level of trust with the team when you're so guarded that you're not letting them in to experience what your fears are and what your vulnerabilities are? And that was a real, we said, how pervasive is it? That was a real blind spot for her. And I see that quite often. I'm going to pause there because I feel like I could go on and on. And I'm going to let you tell me where you want to take it.
We love you going on and on and on. And it's interesting because not only are not a lot of teams high performing, but there's a correlation between, the awareness of trust and maybe the self-awareness. I mean, some psychologists say self-awareness is low worldwide, about 10 to 15%. So sometimes we're just not aware of other people. And Darcy, it's interesting. I mean, I do team coaching as well, and I'll do an assessment. And you can tell whether there's trust on the team because sometimes we'll do an activity that represents the question we ask on the survey. So, for example, when it comes to trust, where do you feel we are as a team? And I have like numbers on the wall from a scale from 1 to 10. Where do you think we are? And we do a human scattergram. And usually they're a little bit more generous live than they were on the survey, but it's so nice for them to see that there's a range of people, like some are at 3 and some are at 9. And then we say, okay, so why were you at 9? Why did you rate it so high? And we listen, here's why I see it this way. And people at 3, here's why I see it this way. And then we ask a few people in the middle. So it's nice to be able to see those different perspectives, which sometimes leaders don't get. But I love I want to go back to something you said about practice, if we can. You're talking about the need for reps and practice to be high performing in sports. And I love what you're saying in that when it comes to thoughts and maybe communication and leadership, we need to do the same thing. And it's my experience that when leaders need to have tough conversations, they don't practice. They want to be authentic. They want to be real. So they just go in and they wing it and they screw it up. And so my question is, how does that impact trust? And how do they get to a place where how do you work with them so that they can get the reps?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think, there's so much richness there. And I love what you just shared about the scattergram, and just to comment about that before I go into the question, it's sort of natural. You can understand that there's different views of the level of trust on the team because everybody comes in with their own experience, their own family of origin. And if you look at it through, the lens of dogs, just for a moment, we had 8 foster dogs during COVID. You might meet one dog out at the dog park and it's like, oh my gosh, yay, you're my new best friend. Can you pet me? And you just go in and you start petting them and you're like, oh, you're so cute. And you're giving them kisses. And then you walk, half a mile and you meet another dog and you can see that they're guarded. Their hair might be up. You have presented yourself exactly the same, but you can tell that there is not a trust there. And so then, you need to respond differently, and you might get down real low and sort of put your hand out and let them sniff you and sort of see what their comfort level is. You've done nothing different. So when you look at a team, of course, there's going to be all sorts of different opinions about the level of trust because we all bring our own experiences to the table. And that's why it's critical to practice, to get in the reps on building the trust, because I want you to think about trust like a verb, and it's something that you do rather than something that you have. And so that means consistently demonstrating behaviors that build trust and reinforce trust, especially when we're talking right now about teams in the workplace. And so when you think about trust as a verb, yeah, you can practice. You can put in the reps to build the trust instead of just, sort of pulling up your hands and saying, well, I don't know why they don't trust me, right? I don't know what I've done or haven't done. It's a lot harder to build the trust if you don't think about it as a series of consistently demonstrating behaviors. And that's the good news. You can practice it. You can train. The more challenging news is that there are different behaviors that build trust for different people, just like with those 2 dogs. And so some people, it builds trust when you have strong follow through. You stick to your commitments. You're someone you can count on. Others, it builds trust when you own your flaws. You admit your mistakes and your weaknesses openly. Some people, it builds trust when you call out accountability, when you hold yourself and other people's feet to the fire and you don't let things slide through. Others want you to speak freely. Like that builds trust when it's like no nonsense, direct conversation. So the playbook becomes more complicated when you add in the dynamics of a whole team and team members who have varying degrees of trust, and the behaviors that improve and increase trust for them are different than the other members on the team.
I love that answer, and Christian. I'm chomping at the bit to talk about something because this is a passion point for me. But I've been hogging the time, so Christian, go ahead. I'll come back to it.
No need to worry about hogging time. This conversation is fantastic, and I'm enjoying just listening and observing and kind of soaking in all of the knowledge here that you're sharing with us, Darcy and Spencer. One of the questions that I have is, uh, you mentioned you've been involved a lot in sports, and we're at the time of year where certain teams who perform, like college football, perform very poorly over a period of time. Eventually, will make a change in leadership. They say, okay, well, this coach isn't working out, and oftentimes what you hear is, well, the players don't trust the coach anymore, right? They don't have confidence in this coach anymore, and so they needed to make a change. And I'm curious from your perspective when it comes to business, in an organization, how do you know if something can be rehabilitated or if you just need to make a change in leadership? What's the decision process that you go through to determine whether this is recoverable with these individuals, or we're past the point of no return, and to move in a different direction, we need to make a change in personnel.
Mm-hmm. It's a critical question. And as you might imagine, it's nuanced. So to me, with the right training, how you show up can increase and improve trust. If you just say, well, this is who I am and this is how I behave and what I, how I operate and how I lead, take it or leave it, that's not going to intentionally build trust. So the people it works for, great. The people it doesn't, that's not going to improve or increase the trust. So I think that there's always an opportunity and room to build trust before you just say, okay, this person's got to go, whether it's the leader or a team member. If indeed there is an interest and a willingness to look within and to say, what's my role in how strong the trust is or isn't on this team? And what can I do to improve or change the trust? If a leader comes in and just is in a place of blaming others, they're the victim, they're throwing people under the bus, to me, and they don't have that interest in trying to look within and say, what's my part? How can I improve the dynamics and increase trust? That's when you might say it's time to let them go and time to move on. If they can see even a 2% truth in feedback they're getting and own that and can be coachable, then I say, like, double down and coach them through that. It's when there's not that interest in making those changes that I think it's a red flag and tougher decisions need to be made.
Okay, so you're actually carrying on with the things that I wanted to talk about. This idea you were talking earlier about, the best leaders are absolutely able to adapt to the person in front of them or the dog that they're petting or wanting to pet, right? And I call that flexible authenticity. I think there's a problem that we have with authenticity. I think there's a misunderstanding what it means to be authentic. And that is the problematic leader you just described. Well, this is who I am. Listen, I'm an assertive, or I'm this way. We make excuses because this is who I am, and the world tells us we should be who we are. And that's what an authentic leader is. To me, that is the disconnect with trust, is because we think, well, I've taken this assessment, and this is where I get the best results. It's a huge mistake, because what the behavior needs to be flexible, the values need to be fixed, if you will, right? The values that we have are not to be fungible or changeable, but we can adapt to the situation to get the best result. And I find that what I consider authentic leaders are able to do that. You're not being fake when you change your approach. You are being, but that's my opinion, and I'm so passionate about that. How do you answer that criticism? Well, you're being a chameleon, right? And you're not being real. I mean, to me, it's a non-issue, but I think that this is something that I fight to address all the time, and I'm so passionate about. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
And the framework, flexible authenticity, beautiful. Allison Shapira is a colleague of ours in the National Speakers Association. And last month she had a newsletter that went out, a blog, and it talked about the authentic leader and how, okay, if you're authentically bored in a meeting and, you don't roll your eyes and open up your laptop and start working, yeah, that's your authentic experience. But I think that's a perfect example where,
That's the
that
paradox of authenticity, right? You're actually shooting yourself in the foot by being your authentic self. Such a cop out.
it's such a cop out. Yes. So, yeah, I mean, when you have emotional intelligence, you're not only looking at what your own experience is, you're also looking at the social interaction and what others' experience is, and then consciously choosing how you're going to show up in that moment instead of just doubling down on your own experience. To me, that's a indication of a really strong, thoughtfully fit leader, is their ability to, as you said, hold their own values and yet know that they need to show up in a way differently for one employee than they do for another in order to build trust, in order to get the most out of them, in order to connect, because we all have those different personalities and styles.
I didn't know all this about you. Now I like you even more, Darcy.
Love that.
Did you notice that Christian's internet's working now?
Yay.
Well, yeah, I have no idea what's going on. Anyway, one of the questions that I've got for you, Darcy, as we're having this conversation is, I'm curious about the relationship between trust and follow through. Sometimes one of the reasons that we don't have trust is that we make promises and we don't keep them. And I'm curious to know a little bit more about that. I think sometimes people are sincere, when they make a commitment, but for whatever reasons, they don't seem to follow through. And, why is that? Why is it that people, especially leaders, will make promises that at that time they may be genuinely intentional about it and they want to keep those promises, but for whatever reason they don't follow through, and then their teams lose trust in them because they haven't actually done the work and they haven't followed through. So I'm curious, in your view, what is keeping people from following through? Like, why do we make these commitments and then we don't follow through on them? And then what we've done is we've broken trust and it's really hard to get it back.
Yes. And I mean, I think why? There's probably a full range of reasons, from just being completely overwhelmed and not being able to follow through because there's only so many hours in the day, and if everything's important, nothing is, which might be caused by not having strong delegation, not having clear roles and responsibilities. So I'm doing too much, so I'm not following through because I can't, taking the monkeys on your back. There's, I think, a whole range of reasons from why leaders don't follow through. And it's just to highlight what I shared a little bit ago. When you look at the research on the trust behaviors, follow through is, in how we list them, it's number 2 as a behavior that will negatively impact trust. So if you don't stick to your commitments, and I would think about, like, when we put it through that athletic physical fitness performance, it's like you show up at practice every time, rain or shine. You follow through. Your word is solid. I think that the overwhelm is probably, I'm guessing, the number one reason why somebody doesn't follow through. I don't necessarily think a leader wakes up in the morning and says, Joe, no, he's not important, I'm not going to follow through on him today. I think it's a matter of triaging and then not being able to communicate well or set really clear boundaries or guidelines on how much I can handle as a leader, to be able to accomplish whatever it is that they're needing to follow through on.
This is actually one of the things that you say people bring to coaching, right? You say the 6 biggest problems, and this is according to your book right here. The 6 top problems people bring to coaching are, number 1, I have too much to do, I can't even think. So you were just addressing that. Number 2, I don't always handle myself the way I'd like. I think that relates a little bit to your question, Christian, when we're overwhelmed. Number 3, I feel stuck and have no idea how to move forward. And this is the one I like. I get annoyed when people don't do what I want them to do. So that leads us to tough conversations, which we'll talk about. 5, people push my buttons and I lose it. Well, that's an awareness and emotional intelligence issue, right? And number 6, my boss, partner, children, friend, coworker, co-host, neighbor is driving me crazy. In other words, it's I'm kidding you, Christian. It's them, not me. So when it comes to these problems, and you say that in 10 years, those are the 6 top problems that you deal with in coaching. When it comes to, let's say, people not doing what we expect them to do, that can be a really especially for leaders of teams, right? Teams not the leader not following through, but now our teams not following through, not meeting deadlines, not achieving their expressed goals or said that the commitments that they've made. How do you have tough conversations and maintain trust? How do you have an accountability culture where people respect you because you do it right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, calling out accountability is one of the top 10 trust behaviors, and not only being able to be accountable yourself and follow through, but then holding others' feet to the fire. And I think, when I talked about those teams at different stages, when it's a brand new team, that you take time up front to design and say, okay, how do we want our team to hold each other accountable? Because if you set it up that only the leader has the ability to call out accountability and hold people's feet to the fire, they're going to be exhausted and overwhelmed and thus not be able to follow through on their commitments. So taking the time to say, how do we want to create an environment where we feel comfortable calling each other out and really holding each other accountable? And so, if I'm a team member and you have said that you're going to get me something by noon on Friday, and now it's Monday and I haven't gotten it, when you have a strong team culture with high degree of accountability, instead of calling the boss and saying, Joe didn't get me what I needed again, I'm so frustrated, and now the boss has got another monkey on his or her back that has to go and follow up with Joe, you call out accountability. Say, hey, Joe, this is frustrating. You said you'd have it to me on Friday. I'm wondering if we can talk because I'm noticing that this is becoming a pattern. So, which is the second. So the first one is you got a new team, talk about it up front. How do we want to
So that's like team agreements, right? This is how we behave on this team and everybody agrees. Yeah, okay.
It's exactly what it is. Then the other one is if you have noticing that there's a pattern, that's the time you go have that tough conversation. That you go and say, and that's another trust behavior, is to be able to speak freely to the person instead of triangulating and going to somebody else and saying, hey, I'm feeling frustrated. You said that you would have something done and it's not done. And it may be, if this is a pattern, I'm noticing that this is a pattern. And I'm wondering if we can talk through what's going on here, because what that means is my team now is behind and our handoff to the next team is going to be delayed because of that. And that is another critical behavior that increases trust, is to be able to speak freely and to encourage direct conversations.
And it's hard because few teams do that well. I mean, hey, Christian, we're playing a basketball game and I missed my pick. And so he didn't score. He needs to be able to call me out and say, Spencer, that was the play. You missed your position, and instead of me being defensive, I own it, and that's hard to get to. Christian, we have a comment from Amy and a question specifically for you, Darcy. I'm going to put it on the screen here. What suggestions do you have for teams that are feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, and it's a great question, because what team isn't feeling overwhelmed? And I want to put it through the lens of when you think about teams that have high degree of trust, one of the components is they're able to communicate openly and honestly and say, I'm overwhelmed. Okay, we've got these 17 priorities. I can't do more. I have to prioritize. Can we talk about, as a team, what are the highest priorities, to be able to communicate? One of the things that is a misnomer or a misconception about trust is that trust means that everyone agrees. And that's absolutely, when you have
so
high
happy
trust,
you brought that up. So happy.
there's healthy disagreement, right?
Yes, and
And if
that's
I
actually the
trust you,
thing. Actually, the thing that people, in my experience, teams do the worst. It's called constructive interaction, meaning they struggle most with disagreement, and most teams worldwide, that's the hardest issue. Sorry to interrupt, but I agree with you.
yes, absolutely. So, if I trust you, I'm going to speak up when I don't agree with you. If I don't trust you, I'm going to go after the post-meeting meeting and talk to somebody else and say, I can't believe that Spencer did that. And can you believe? And I'm going to triangulate and bring somebody else in. And so that feeling of when a team is overwhelmed, being able to have that constructive interaction, to be able to name it, to be able to prioritize, and to do it in a way, that is when it's not too late. I mean, there are subtle signs that show up when trust is eroding on a team. Everything might seem fine on the surface, but a team's overwhelmed and trust is slowly eroding because maybe people aren't talking about it or naming it. What that can look like. People saying yes in meetings, but then dragging their feet afterwards and not following through, to your point. Because if I'm going to say yes, because I don't trust the team and the environment, to say no, I don't have the capacity. Side conversations popping up instead of direct ones. Meetings where nobody is challenging ideas because silence is safer than honesty. That when team members start to become guarded and meetings are quiet, that feeling overwhelmed becomes pervasive. If you don't have the ability to have, as you named it, constructive interaction, to be able to have healthy conflict, that's then when you're heading towards that spectrum of toxins, unfortunately.
Christian, we got to name our sponsor, and I know you got a question.
Oh yeah, go for it, Spencer. Let's get the sponsor.
So we have a sponsor, Darcy, which I'm so grateful for, Team Coaching International, and there's lots of, we're talking about teams. There's lots of different types of teams: project teams, cross-functional teams, virtual teams. And one of the things that we do is we assess them with a team diagnostic, and we figure out where they are on this spectrum of productivity versus positivity, which is the ability to sustain productivity, right? So if you think about it, a team that's highly productive but low positive, that's kind of what we're talking about. Toxic, there's turnover, it's not sustainable. And then if you look at a team that's highly positive but not productive, well, that's not sustainable either. Of course, you're out of business very quick if it's low productive and low positive. And so every team has a little bit of all of those. That's what this white square represents, where you are in terms of your max on productivity or lowest and on the positivity. So we look at that, and each of those models of productivity and positivity have 7 elements, and trust is one of those, right? So trust, respect, and valuing diversity and constructive interaction. So we can see where the team is doing with those positivity elements and productivity elements, and we take a real close look at that. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time because we really drill down into where the team is. And if you would like to experience what is called the team diagnostic, take a picture of this QR code, or we'll put a link in the show notes, and you can do a free version of the team diagnostic. So it's not a true diagnostic in the sense that everybody takes it. It's what's called a team leader view. So Darcy, if you took this would be your perspective of the team. So it's a team leader view of the team, but you at least get to experience how this diagnostic works. And so we invite you to take a test run of that and see how that could help really identify where your team needs help. All right, back to our guest. Christian, carry us forward.
All right. Well, we've just got a few minutes left in our conversation here today, Darcy. So I'll ask my final question and then hand it over to Spencer, who may have one or more questions for you to wrap it up here. My final question is this. I find it instructive sometimes to look at words and their meanings in different languages. In Spanish, the word for trust is confianza. This also happens to be the word for confidence. Confianza is the same word. And so I'm curious to hear from your perspective. What is the relationship between trust and confidence? Is it exactly the same thing? Are there differences? Again, I'm just asking this question because I'm kind of a language nerd and I like these kind of things. But in your perspective, the relationship between trust and confidence.
What a fun question, Christian. That's fascinating. And before I answer it, let me just say for your sponsor, Team Coaching International, fantastic tool. The team diagnostic.
Do you
team
use it?
review, we use it all the time.
We got to talk.
Oh, yeah. We love it. We do it
I am so glad that you use it.
7 indicators, positivity, productivity, and then we'll do 12-month engagement. We'll do a post and we'll look at where the scores have changed.
Yes.
I mean, it's a great tool.
Okay, we got to talk before we leave. That's so great.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad you use it.
Highly
Okay, here we
reliable,
go.
highly valid. Yes. So to your question, it's not something I will be just really honest and vulnerable here and say that I have not ever thought about the relationship directly between trust and confidence. So I'm going to answer your question and process out loud as I'm reflecting on that. And I think to me, when trust is high, the relationship has high confidence. But it's interesting because also if there is high trust, I think that there's also an ability to be vulnerable and to say maybe the confidence is low, like, y'all, I don't know if this is the right strategy for our team. I want to see if we can pause here and look at some of our assumptions we're making in the process of identifying this strategy and this goal before we move forward. And I think that, well, I don't know if that's necessarily a lack of confidence, but it's to me, I guess, a confidence to be able to know that there is psychological safety here and that I can say what needs to be said because the environment is trusting enough. The team has a high enough trust that I can speak openly. And I guess as I'm talking in circles here, that does take confidence to be able to say, I see it differently. My perspective is a little bit different than yours. Can I share another perspective? I would guess if trust is low on a team, that the confidence to speak up and disagree and share a different perspective would be lower. And I'm curious, Christian, if you have other thoughts on that relationship, because it's such a great question.
In Italian, it's fiducia. So fiduciary, right? That's trust, is a fiduciary. Someone that has responsibility. You know, you said that, for example, trust is a verb. It's doing, it's taking action. Well, that's what a fiduciary does, right? It takes responsibility and protects.
Yeah, I kind of look at it. Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I just kind of look at it like, when we think about trust, we think about it more from kind of a moral and emotional center, and confidence perhaps comes from competence, right? So it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier in the conversation, having competence and credibility versus, this kind of moral authenticity and I just think it's interesting in a different language, they're one and the same.
You know what, Christian, I didn't finish the Amy Cuddy's conclusion. Both are equally important, competence and warmth or trust, but the trust comes first. Before you demonstrate your competence, people have to trust you. And Darcy's example of the dog is exactly why. Right, I don't earn the right to pet the dog unless the dog trusts me. But once I have that, then I can create that relationship, right? And that's, to me, both are important. So you got to have the competence, but you're so right. They're so reinforcing. Sorry, I just got so excited, Christian.
I love that. And so I have to just add in, was a German major. I looked up quickly. Trust in German is Vertrauen, which interestingly says confidence, faith, reliance.
Yes. Vertrauen, das ist die Wahrheit. Das ist ausgezeichnet, fantastisch.
Ich habe vergessen, dass du Deutsch sprichst.
Ja, ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch. Das ist unglaublich. Okay, so I have for you a lightning. Well, hold on. We got to punctuate that.
I
All
love
right.
that.
We have what's called a lightning round. And so I have 10 questions for you that you just like one word answers or really quick answers, just whatever off the top of your head. Okay. Trust is built fastest when a leader blank.
Is honest.
A common trust killer in teams is
Uh, Triangulating, talking to somebody else about what you're upset about.
one word that describes a high trust culture.
Confidence.
A leader you admire who models trust well.
U.S. Senator Herb Kohl, my former boss.
What's worse, micromanaging or ghosting your team?
That's like, what would you rather eat, a worm or a frog? Uh,
Depends on the preparation.
yeah, I mean, I guess I would say ghosting is worse because then there's like no ability to even have a conversation. Whereas
In
if
the
you're
absence of
micromanaging,
information, people awfulize and catastrophize, don't they?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Can you repair trust after it's been broken? Yes or no?
yes.
Your favorite part of coaching leaders?
Ooh. Helping them create new awareness, see their blind spots in a way where they feel really excited and empowered to make changes that will improve the dynamics on the team.
Yes. What breaks trust quicker, ego or avoidance?
I'm going to go with avoidance.
Okay. That's consistent with the other question. Your go to book besides yours on leadership or trust?
Well, The Speed of Trust, Stephen Covey, is fabulous.
Yes. Finish the sentence. Thoughtfully fit leaders always.
Train and practice to be high performing. Don't leave it to chance.
I love that.
Wow. Well, thanks for being so game to play along with Spencer's lightning round questions. Darcy, to wrap it up, if people want to learn more about how you or your organization can help them, either individually or help their organization build higher performing teams, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
We're on all the social platforms, and our website is darcyluoma.com. Then we also have, if you go to thoughtfullyfitteams.com, there's a Teams quiz you can take. That's just a couple of minutes that will give you a diagnostic of your, in this moment in time, where your team falls in a category of 4 different spectrums.
Okay, I got to tease her Wisconsin accent. So for those of you who don't know, it's Luoma, right? If that's how you spell it, not Loma, but so Luoma. If you're looking for her, just yeah, I love the Wisconsin accent. I love you.
That is so funny because I don't hear it at all. And when I go to the West Coast or the East Coast, yeah, it's
They all
apparently
tease you.
prevalent.
That's all right. We don't think we have an accent either.
Oh, we
And
totally
we go
do.
other places are like, oh yeah, you definitely do have an accent. All right, Spencer. If you've been helping teams for decades, or your organizations build high performing teams, and you coach individuals as well. If people want to connect with you, what's the best way to contact you?
Reach out on LinkedIn. Just find me there. You can see my website is connected there. You can schedule a consultation with me right there from my LinkedIn. And Christian, gosh, I'm so sad that we didn't have more time to get to know Christian Darcy, but he's been a consultant for major game space like the International Olympic Committee and organizing committees. And right now he's leading the digital transformation for the state of Utah. Does so much. He's an entrepreneur, a technologist, AI, just a regular good guy, and a foodie like none other. So people who want to find a thoughtful and incredible consultant, how do they get a hold of you, Christian?
Wow. Well, whenever I need to apply for a job and inflate my resume, I know who to talk to. Spencer, thank you very much.
Anytime.
Folks, just anybody reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to do it. Happy to connect with people. So this has been a fantastic hour, Darcy and Spencer, and so grateful to you for carving time out of your schedules to have this conversation. And thank you, listeners and viewers, for chiming in. And we really appreciate you. Please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll catch you again soon.